But first up, we will also stick with the banking licenses issue. N. Shivaraman, President and whole-time Director of L&T Finance, joins us. Shivaraman, morning and good to have you on the show. Well, first up, have you all thought through the structure? Would you be looking directly at a bank and then divesting businesses from your finance companies, or would your NBFC be converted into a bank?
Well, I think in the longer term, we need to have one balance sheet and one entity which will actually host all the, definitely the loan-related activities, while some of the other fee-based activities can be outside the bank to the extent it is permissible. It's a long-term plan. If you ask me honestly whether it is something which we will do on day zero, I think it will have to be fully thought through because there has got a liability side implications, the asset allocation across various sectors. So all of them will have to be really worked on. But I think it is suffice to say that in the longer term, it will be one balance sheet is what we can say at that moment.
Mr. Shivaraman, is it mandated by the RBI that NBFCs need to convert them, need to merge their operations into a new bank, or you do have an option of starting a new bank or perhaps, merging your existing business into an NBFC? Do you all have an option?
Well, what I hear from various quarters is that there is perhaps a interpretation of that type available, but from a business efficiency perspective, it's ideal that it is on one balance sheet, and we get the best out of that balance sheet is what will have to be looked at. So it's something which will be a long-term goal than immediate goal, but there could be some specialized activities like, for example, the infrastructure finance, which given that it's a very, very long-term lending, and the housing it in a bank could pose a asset liability risk, asset liability mismatches. It may be one we can look at putting it in a separate NBFC and within the overall supervision of RBI.
Yeah. Actually, I was coming to that. From what you are saying, it appears that ultimately you want one balance sheet. So converting the NBFC into a bank, at least at the outset, before you have thought through, looks like the option. In that case, are there any activities that do not fit into the banking structure? Because then the Reserve Bank says they will have to be taken out of that entity. Do you foresee that some of the activities will not be included?
In a broader sense, the absolutely regulatorily mandated activities will have to be moved out of the bank, like a brokerage or a mutual fund, those kind of activities. But what will have to be seen is in terms of the activities which are around loan origination, which will be driven by nearness to the customer rather than being at a branch. Or something which may have to be really managed in a manner that is synergistic with the bank. Okay. Other than that, will be the brokerages, mutual fund, those kind of activities in any case are mandated to be outside the bank in any case.
Sir, if an NBFC does convert into a bank, do you see it hampering near-term profitability as you look to meet, the reserve requirements or the priority sector lending?
It is difficult to comment as of today, right? As I said, it will have to be something which will have to be very carefully thought through because many NBFCs have got a very large and diverse balance sheets. So they will have to be looked at and then planned out in a manner that it fulfills the overall regulatory requirements. So maybe one will have to look at it in the context of what has been the existing balance sheet, what is the new balance sheet that will have to originate, and then match it with the way the liabilities can be built in the balance sheet. Because, for example, we are also carrying a level of borrowings from various sources for the purpose of having supported the current balance sheet. They cannot be broken, rather paid off in one shot, right? So all this phasing will have to be done in a manner that really fits within the banking environment and put that together. So it's difficult to comment whether it will be an impact on profitability on an upfront basis. But if the transition can be managed well, I don't see that posing as a problem.
Okay. Rima asked this question about profitability. Just to scratch that point further, it's not just reserve requirements, it's also that straight away the first quarter of your branches, 25% have to be in unbanked areas, which is not quite a level playing field because for the incumbents it's 25% of incremental branches. Together with all this, would not profits get postponed? Do you think that listing in 3 years is an easy option, or will that be challenging?
See, the unbanked areas branches are not also going to cost too much by way of infrastructure as well as manpower cost. Let's put a number of about say 20 lakhs per annum. Let's say we have 200 branches in the first year, which is a very ambitious target to say. Right, these 50 branches will cost me around 7, 8, 10 crores of rupees. Is that a big number in the context of a large profitable operation? I don't think so. Okay. So it's yes, it is imbalanced. It's a question of how you roll out these branches and how you build it over a period of time. So I don't think that itself will have a big impact on the profitability of a bank. Yes. I'm assuming zero contribution from these branches also. So I don't think that should really hamper us unless one plans for 1,000 branches in a year, then it poses a problem. But I don't think it's a feasible.
Okay, Shivraman, just a legal problem. If an entity were to convert its NBFC into a bank, that NBFC is listed. So the bank will be listed from day one?
No, if it, it depends on whether the NBFC have got any other activities or not, right? So it's a question of if there is a promoter and the NBFC is the promoter, there is a promoter for the NBFC, then you need to look through the non-operating holding company, those kind of ways of taking it forward. I think it's end of the day, it's a guideline. It only puts together a framework in which RBI will approve.
No. I'm just asking directly. Shivraman, what I'm saying is, suppose assuming you get the license and you convert your NBFC into a bank, you are already listed. That's all right by the rules?
I would suppose. See, I think what does RBI want to achieve? RBI wants to achieve at the end of the period a very diverse shareholding for the bank, right? Yes. Now, if you are able to achieve it right up front, I don't think they will have an objection to that, right? Okay. So, as I mentioned, it's a guideline which sets a framework. The regulator can always be engaged in what's an ideal way to take it forward. They want the banks to be profitable. They want serious capital providers to be backing backing the bank. If these two are met with and it is ring-fenced from promoters, other activities, if these three things are fulfilled, I think we can engage with the regulator, each one of whoever is the promoting entity, can always engage with the regulator and make them understand how it fulfills the overall undertone of the,
in this case,
what is expected out of it.
Yeah, in this case, it perhaps fits with the philosophy of that paper, of the rules. But this is not a question really connected with you, but since you broached the topic of NBFC companies, I just wanted your comment as an NBFC guy. What happens to groups which are only finance groups? They have to have a promoting company which owns the holding company, and that promoter company should not have any finance dealings and should be widely held, at least 51%. So do largely finance groups get excluded?
I don't think so. See, as I said, they are allowing an NBFC to be converted into a bank, which means that they will have to really think through their ownership structure that exists today at the NBFC level or at any other level, and then put together a path to really unwinding this ownership structure to satisfy what RBI requires. I think if the intent is there and the able to fulfill the basic, what I would say, the expectation of RBI as to how they want to the banks to be operating, all this should be solvable issues in my view. It's a question of engaging with the regulator.
Okay. Sir, do you have clarity that if you all decide to convert into a bank, do you have to meet the priority sector lending norms prospectively or even on the old loans?
Whatever is what I would interpret it as is that anything that you put on the balance sheet of the bank will have to meet with the overall guidelines. So I would guess that if one assumes that progressively you will start building the balance sheet of the bank while unwinding the balance sheet of the NBFC, I think it's going to be on incremental assets. But I think we'll have to, again, as I said, we'll have to, it's only a guideline, the framework which will have to be talked to though with the regulator, and then we'll have to work on that. It's difficult to put a number at this point of time.
Okay. And in your understanding of the industry and perhaps the way forward, do you see a lot of M&A? There is talk that smaller private banks could get acquired in this whole process over the next perhaps 1 year or so. Is that the scenario that you see?
First is we'll have to anybody who wants to be own a bank will have to satisfy the fit and proper regulations, right? And thereafter we'll have to see whether an M&A fulfills the objectives of RBI in having large-sized and robustly capitalized banks being in position, right? I think it's a little premature to really speculate on whether an M&A will be a route for establishing a new bank. But having got a license, and then if there is an opportunity to consolidate further and the regulator is willing to look at it favorably, I think that would be a route of consolidation rather than starting up a new bank. But the important point that we need to note is that ultimately there is a existing management, existing set of shareholders. Their goals, their strategic goals will have to be aligned with that of the new shareholder. Otherwise, it may not be so valuable as one thinks.
Okay. Well, actually, I got this M&A doubt at the holding company level or the promoter level, which owns the holding company. Will there be a lot of possible M&A at that level? Because, say, groups like Shriram will have a problem, or even other groups, there are SRE, there is IDFC, there are pure finance companies galore. Would they want to look at, merging or whatever, a JV with another listed company so that they can own this holding company in a non-financial sense? Do you see that kind of M&A activity at above the holding company level?
I think the first is we have to satisfy we are fit and proper, rather anybody who aspires to own a bank.
Of course.
And then the options will have to be examined. I do not want to rather pry into the regulator's mind and then say how they will think about it at the moment. Not at all.
No, actually, I was asking you to pry into promoters' minds, not so much the regulators' minds. Those promoters who don't qualify in the sense of, having a promoter group. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Lata, whether one qualifies or not, right? Why will one want to go through the process of reinventing the wheel? I think this is a very famous statement you would have heard from me a few times earlier as well, right? An M&A desktop helps you get started on a good pedestal, good platform from which you can really start building. Right, the pains of establishing greenfield operations can always be eliminated in this process. But ultimately, the first step is to get ourselves as qualified as a fit and proper person to own a bank. And anybody who wants to do a bank, really.
Okay, and just the last one, and to qualify as a fit and final, banking candidate, do you see any guidelines which are, particularly onerous from an L&T Finance holding point of view?
We have seen these guidelines as they existed at the time of the draft. Other than the changes to the qualification criteria for the promoters, there have been no major change in the guidelines, except that they have been very explicit on governance standards and disclosure standards and compliance with the various what the exposures and other what they call as the prudential guidelines. Okay, all of them have been set out. But other than that, I think we have been. There is nothing that is that we did not know earlier. I think we need to work on the transition. That's
Fair enough.
The situation.
Okay, Shriram, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts. Okay, that's S&P holding a media teleconference on Indian banking system. And these are the first headlines that we are getting from that teleconference, that Indian banking system, they see it recovering only in FY15. That's actually not a very tough guess. More headlines coming in. We'll take a break and be back. We'll have another discussion on the same issue. This time we will be speaking with Ajay Srinivas.